one of the biggest critiques I hear from people who are who talk about channelers is the dark energies, negative energies, demons, if you want to
Hmm.
work. How do you ensure that the message that you're channeling is coming from love and light and not from these other, quote unquote energies, if you will? Because that's one thing I get asked a ton.
Yeah. Well, I always say to people, if you're channeling and there is a voice of love and guidance and support coming your way, that's a vibration that's high. And if a voice is coming your way that is telling you to do things that you don't feel comfortable doing or is negative, that's important to stop, pause, and investigate what's going on. I do know of a few people who there was one person I knew of who she had various things going on with her mental health. She had some I'm trying to remember what the diagnosis was, but she had a lot of ups and downs in her own mental health, and she started channeling. And of course,
Oh,
what she hooked onto wasn't necessarily helpful to her, but she also had those voices in her head in her daily life. So I think, if you come to this with an open heart and an open mind, and you know that you're in a fairly open place, you should be okay. But more than you should be okay, pay attention. There's a reason that I spent the first 2 years studying my guides. They never once said anything to anyone or to me that left judgment in the pit of my stomach or someone else's. Now, they can be truthful. Like, there were things they would say to me where they'd be like, this is your issue, not your friend's, and here's why. And I'd be like, oh, and I'd see they were right. They weren't telling me off, they weren't shaming me, but they were just being really honest. So I think it's all about the proof. And one of the biggest issues I see with people around spirituality is they don't test it. They go,
mm.
"Oh well, my priest said this, and because he's a priest, therefore I should just believe him." No, you shouldn't believe the person in the street who just tells you something without checking, how does my body feel about that information? Was the advice they gave me leading me to a higher path? Like, we all have to be discerning. And I think because we have been asked to give away our power to spirit, whether it's through organized religion or some other method that we were introduced to, we have this, oh, well, I can't question what the spirit said. And I'm like, yeah, you can. I'm a big believer in do not do what your guides tell you to do unless you feel you can do it and unless it feels good to you. They're not in charge. This is a co-collaborative relationship. And I wish I'd known that in my early 20s. I was a lot greener. And I had to learn that the hard way. And then one of the best things for me was doing this work publicly. I saw how many people were so willing and quick to give their power away to spirit
Oh,
because they had let go of themselves. And I also had abandoned myself. I'd abandoned the true nature of myself. It took me years to recover it. So I understand why so many people who are so pained in their life see spirit as an escape hatch. But the problem is you can only escape through that hatch so many times before, if you're really paying attention, it will ask you to come back to your human life and clean some things up.
well, isn't it amazing that people who are at that place, it's so easy to give up power and have someone else tell you what to do. I mean, society has worked wonderfully like that. People are like, just you tell me what to do. I'm tired. I don't want to think about it. I'm scared to do it. I'm fearful. And people do give their power away. It is a much more difficult and heavier lift to look inside of yourself, to connect with your own higher self and walk a path than it is to just listen to something that was written in a book or someone that's, and that goes for everything, not just organized religion, spirituality,
It's
new
true.
age. You can make an idol out of anything, you know,
It's true.
out of
And we
anything.
all we all kind of want the parent to come in and take care of
Right.
things.
I think that's what it
It's like you're
is.
like, oh, I don't want to go. Where's my parent today? And it's like, oh
Like,
no, they're not here anymore. They're either literally not here or they're, miles away. And actually, guess what? You're an adult. And you're like, oh God, I am, aren't I? And I think, so many of us say that. It's like, what? What do you mean we're the responsible adult? And when I was a kid, I looked at people my age and I thought, wow, they've got
you
all the
got it all
answers.
figured
And now I
out.
am my age and I'm like, wow, life is complicated and weird. And, So I'm not a parent in this life, but I am full of admiration for the parents who are doing the best to kind of guide and steer
It's
unknowing children who also probably look at the parents like they know everything.
to a certain age, and then they pass that stage, and they're like, they know
That's
nothing.
true. Yes,
They
then they
know
go full
nothing.
blown rejection.
They go
Yeah.
full blown rejection, and obviously you know nothing. And I always tell, like, I look at my kids, I go, do you know we're alive a lot longer than you have? We've obviously done something to survive because you
Yeah.
met grandma and grandpa.
Yeah. But
So
isn't
we all
is
do that.
isn't age kind of beautifully and sometimes in a difficult way humbling? Like I think back to
Oh,
the know-it-all side of me,
oh,
like as a teenager and as an early 20s. Like, I'm learning all this stuff about spirituality. And at first I thought like I found these secrets to
I'm
the
gonna.
universe. And then what I realized is it's like a hall of mirrors. It's like you learn one thing, there are going to be 8 million more things that will lead you to. So eventually you realize you know so little. And I find that really humbling, but I do remember that I think it's the rite of passage we probably have to go through as we're trying to become independent as young people, because I think being a young person is so hard. And
Oh,
so I think you have to kind of puff yourself up to try and push through it. And actually, it's quite lonely in there. It's quite lonely in that way of behavior, but I think it's often just something that moves through the DNA that you have to prove yourself. And then life takes you on all these journeys. And the older you get, the more you go, oh, wow, I didn't know that much after all. But I needed to
eh,
think I did in order to have the balls to kind of push through.
well, when you're young, you need to have delusion.
Mhm.
Delusion is your greatest
Yes,
enemy
that's
and your
true.
greatest
That's true.
strength. You need to be delusional enough to, like, I'm just gonna go
Yeah,
backpack through Europe. I'm like,
it's
are
true.
you? And you look at yourself now, I'm 40, like, backpack through Europe. Are you insane? I would never do something
Yes,
like,
yes, yes.
you're like, do you not know what could happen? No, I had no idea what could happen.
Yeah.
Like, I was in my 20s and I was like, I'm just gonna go to Mexico for a week by myself. And I'm like, and I didn't really think, and I had a great trip, by the way, but still, like, I look back, I'm like, that was insane.
Yeah.
Nobody knew where I was. There were no
No.
cell phones that I could international calls. There was My parents just thought I was literally gone off the face of the earth for a week or two. And hopefully I showed up at the end of it. It was insane.
But isn't it interesting? Because I understand what you're saying, and at the same time, there's something that's nostalgic about that time. Like
Oh,
we're now in this grid of technology and mapping and surveillance, basically.
sure.
There is something kind of really nostalgic about going back 20, 30 years and remembering how kind of off grid you could be, which is a lot
Oh,
harder these days.
to watch the full video, click on the link below. And don't forget to subscribe.